to the Past the Wire War Room, and we've got another video for you brought to you by our good friends at Spendthrift Farm. And what can I say? 2020 is finally coming to an end. I'm pretty sure most of us are very glad. It was a bizarre year in many ways, not just in the sport of kings, but pretty much across the board. We're still dealing with this pandemic that has knocked everything out of whack and, changed our racing schedule and maybe the racing landscape, maybe permanently, or at least for, a long while going forward, as far as there being no fans at the races or limited fans, and, crowds in the grandstands were becoming a thing of the past anyway. And, the pandemic certainly seems to have accelerated that whole thing, which brings me to one of the things I want to talk about in this video that I think you'll enjoy. One of the things we miss, and I'm going to try and bring a little of it back through these videos, are the war stories and interactions and characters we come across when we go to the racetrack. When I think back of growing up, going to, Aqueduct in those freezing winter days, in Belmont in the spring and the fall, and Saratoga in the summer, and just growing up and seeing all the different characters, it's almost like a racetrack family. Sometimes you just know the faces, sometimes you just know the names, the interactions some of them are priceless. And, we do have in our sport our fair share of characters. So, as convenient and easy as it is to sit at home with your feet up, or be out and about and just pick up your phone and make a bet over the phone, it does lose something from that day-to-day racetrack experience. And I'm going to share a little story with you, and there's so many, and I'll go up against anybody with racetrack stories. I mean, I spent nearly half a century there, and I've seen and come across quite a bit, and there are some great stories, and I'm going to start sharing more of them. I've never been one to seek out information, a tip on a horse. It's just not me. I go with my own opinion. I don't believe in information, okay? You could find that stuff out. If a horse is well-meant, he's well-meant. If a horse isn't, I think it's more valuable than knowing that a horse is. I'd rather a trainer or a rider tell me their horse has no shot than telling me that they like their horse. Because trainers and owners and even riders, when they talk about horses, it's like people talk about their kids. They see the good. They don't really evaluate things objectively. And I think Eddie Arcaro, the great master of a rider, put it best when somebody asked him once, and this is the truth, what he would have liked to have done had he not been a jockey. And he thought for a minute and he said, I'd have liked to have been the bookie in the jocks room. And he was probably would have been a lucrative career for sure. That said, I've never been one for information or wanting to know who anybody likes. When I owned horses, I don't think I ever asked Peter if he liked a horse ever. He asked me if I thought we had a good check, because he knew I would handicap objectively. He would tell me if a horse was doing good, and if they were training well. But as far as handicapping or having that kind of opinion, you have to be objective about it. You can't look at it the way most trainers do. Now, some of them are very sharp, and we all know people put horses over. But generally speaking, information, your horse may be very well meant, but somebody's maybe meant a little bit better. And there's that old saying that we love around the racetrack more than anywhere else: those who know don't say, those who say don't know. So keep that in mind. It's always best to live and die with your own opinion, especially at the races, but in probably all walks of life. That said, we're going to share a couple of interesting stories. The main one will come last, and I won't take too much of your time. Hopefully, you find it a little bit entertaining. I think they're funny, but I saw one time, and I always observe things. I'm the kind of person who I could be around in a crowd and I just observe. I pick up on things that sometimes people don't see or don't notice or whatever the case may be. But A year or two ago, couldn't be last year because I wasn't there, but either the year before, maybe the year before that, I don't remember. A very well known racing personality who's on TV and on some of the networks and does a lot of coverage, and a very, very well known person. Was walking out of the racetrack after the last race at Saratoga. They were walking a couple of feet in front of me, and no names. We don't mention names, but I will say who the rider was because it really doesn't matter. And if the person who I'm talking about ever sees this video and knows it was them, I didn't give your name out, so tough. You know, you'll just have to deal with it. We were all walking out, and this person literally accosts Joel Rosario. Walks over to him. Joel says hi to me. We know each other to say hello. And this guy, who knew Joel as well, probably better than I do, walks over and puts his arm around him and is like, listen, that horse you told me you liked, he ran third. I thought he was going to win. You said you liked him, but, you know, he ran third. But I guess, you know, he tried, right? Do you like anything tomorrow? And you could tell Rosario was uncomfortable. Didn't like the whole vibe of the situation. You could see it, you know what I mean? You're a poker player, you could spot these kind of things. Even if you're not, you're a people watcher, you could see it. He was uncomfortable with the whole situation. And he kind of even pulled away, and this guy got closer. Just totally didn't respect his space whatsoever. And he said, do you like anything tomorrow? And he already had the next day's program. They sell them on the way out. And Rosario said, you know, not really. I got a couple that may have a shot or something. And he proceeded to open up to every race that this poor rider was riding. And, well, what about this one? You like him? And he's like, yeah, he's got a shot. And, well, what about this one? You like him? Yeah, he's got a shot. And he answered the same way everything he asked him. And he marked down everything he said like it was some worthy information to have. I was embarrassed for the guy. Okay, that's how bad and awkward it was. You know, obviously he never heard what Eddie Arcaro said, and he thought he was going to get something from Joel Rosario that he couldn't get anywhere else. And, you know, there are some people that believe in, lack of a better term, quote, information. I got a tip on a horse, or so-and-so likes his horse. Nonsense, nonsense, nonsense. But one time, well, maybe more than once, but one time sticks out where I was like, he knew. He really knew. It was probably the last time I went to the races. I think that, no, it wasn't the last time. It was the last meet. It was the last Pegasus that Mucho Gusto won. I went to the races that day, but I went afterwards. I went to the Florida Derby, a couple of other races. So it wasn't the last time I have been to the track, but it was that meet. So I went to the Pegasus, and I liked Mr. Freeze and made a nice bet on Mr. Freeze that day. And the Pegasus was the last race on the card, and I was in what, for lack of a better term, VIP area. And it was the last race, and at this particular time, the Gulfstream post-time lag was still in full play. So there I am, standing actually in front of a big TV, and there was a mutual teller there if you wanted to bet, but I was already down and I was alive for some nice money if Mr. Freeze happened to win that race. And I was comfortable with my bet, okay? And I'm standing there, and there's a young, very well-dressed couple standing in front of me, maybe 2 feet, and nobody else is around. Everybody else is outside. Like I said, this is a VIP area. It wasn't crowded to begin with. And I'm standing there waiting for the race, and, you know, the horses are parading behind the gate like they did at Gulfstream back then before they got rid of that lag. And it was you know, good maybe 5-8 minutes, which seems like a long time when you're standing there doing nothing. And I'm standing there, and these two people are standing in front of me, and they're speaking Spanish. They weren't speaking English at all. And I'm standing behind them, not eavesdropping, but I could hear them talking. Wasn't paying attention to what they were saying. Now, as the race is about to run, a very, very well-known rider, top rider, but a rider that I don't know to speak to at all, maybe not at, if that, you know, from just seeing each other's face over the years at the races. But this particular rider didn't have a mount in the Pegasus this particular year, which is strange because it is a rider that generally does. And he comes in, And when he sees these two people, his eyes light up at this woman. And it's very obvious to me that they know each other, and he considers her someone that is very dear to him. He made a point to come there to see her. So they embrace, and he's like, "Oh, so good to see you." And he shakes the guy's hand, but he knew the woman. And they start speaking in Spanish, and I'm just waiting for the race to go off, wondering why Mr. Freeze is like 7-1 when I thought he'd be 10 or 12-1, and that's really what I'm focused on. And they're talking, and you can tell that as dear as she was to him, after a minute or two, when it was getting close to post time, he wanted to run. I guess he wanted to either watch the race with someone else or somewhere else, or beat the crowd. I don't know what it is, but he wanted to run. So right before he kind of, made his turn to go away, she says to him, oh, wait, I bet. And she takes a ticket out of her shirt and she shows it to him. And he looks at it and he goes, no. Mucho gusto. And it wasn't so much that he told her. It was the degree of certainty that he told her that kind of caught my eye. And she said something to him and showed her a ticket. And he goes, no, mucho gusto. And she put her ticket back and she smiled. And he went to turn away and he looked at her and she wasn't doing anything. She was just standing in front of me watching the horses that were getting now much closer to the gate. They were going to load them any minute. I would say, judging by the Gulfstream time, which, 1 minute equals like maybe 4 minutes, there was probably a minute or two of real time until they started loading in the gate. So it was getting down to the wire. I obviously wasn't going to pay any attention or make any wager or anything or adjustment in my wager based on this, because I just don't do that. But when he turned to go away, he looked back and he saw she wasn't moving. He ran back over, took her by the shoulders, pointed her towards the mutual window, grabbed her ticket out of her pocket in front and said, no, mucho gusto, and pushed her towards the window. She went up to the window. She handed the guy the ticket. Obviously, she changed it for mucho gusto, whatever the case may be. He was gone like a thief in the night. And there she was with this gentleman standing in front of me watching the race. And here I am hoping Mr. Freeze wins, thinking I'm the smart handicapper. These guys don't know nothing. We all know what happened. Mucho Gusto ran a big race and won. Now, what always struck me about that moment, and I haven't told the story to many people, a couple of friends, but what I always emphasize about that story and what was strange was, I've heard many riders and many trainers give out a horse or like a horse, even emphatically, even insistently. You know how us racetrackers can be with our opinions. It gets personal and it's downright ugly sometimes. This gentleman rider spoke with a degree of certainty. He didn't think Mucho Gusto was going to win. He didn't like Mucho Gusto. He was emphatic, Mucho Gusto. And Mucho Gusto, came through. So as much as I say there's no information out there that's worth having, and always go with your own opinion, every now and then, maybe if you're the type that listens, see, in the long run, I figure in the long run, I'll get you. So that doesn't matter. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So you may have got me today with Mucho Gusto. In the long run, I will run you down and draw away. But on that particular day, Mucho Gusto was the horse, and this gentleman knew it. So, just I found it very funny and an interesting story. So these are the kind of things that we miss when we're not at the racetrack, because if nothing else, it was entertaining, as entertaining as the $20 cup of coffee, which is another story that happened that day that my man Jerome knows about, because I shared it with him. If he's watching, you know what I'm talking about. But we lose these things not being at the racetrack. We lose these interactions. We lose these chances to just see, make, and live these war stories and these Damon Runyon type characters that we come across at the racetrack, which are, in my opinion, priceless. You really come across everything. I'm going to give a shout out to Jason Beam because he did a little video the other day where he imitated all the different kinds of rooters there are out there, and he was spot on. I don't think he missed one. We've all seen them there. Also some great characters. I had a guy I used to bring around with me. He was my rooter. When I was alive for big money, I would say I didn't root. I'd lean. I'm a leaner. But he was a good rooter, so I'd say, Joe, roof me, and he would root me in. And I would take care of him when we got home. I would take care of him even when we didn't get home. But that's just me and how it was. But anyway, war stories, we got a lot of them. If you've got any to share, let me know. I'd love to hear them. But we got a lot more coming, a lot better than this, a lot of crazy ones. But we're going to bring back a little bit of that stuff that we missed by not going to the races and not interacting. So with that, I want to wish everybody a very, very happy New Year. All the best of health. May God be with all of you and all of yours. May 2021 be better for you all in every way than 2020 was, whether it was good, hard, difficult. May 2021 be just so much better for all of you. That is my hope and my prayer for everybody that's listening and even those that are not listening. So with that, we'll be back soon with more war stories and a lot of other stuff coming to you from Past the Wire. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And like I always say, ciao for now.
Horses have reached the starting gate. It's post time. Home run, the favorite.